What you're about to hear now is just one episode in a bigger series, full of secrets and mystery. If you haven't followed the beginning yet, I advise you to go back to the first parts so you can understand every detail and realize how much more dangerous what's coming is. Are you ready to face what lies beneath the water? In the depths of a dark lake, amid the fog, and on a night history we'll never forget, something appeared, something the human mind cannot comprehend. And now, the world knows nothing. No pictures, no evidence. Only we saw and only we barely survived. We thought the story was over, but we were wrong, because the nightmare hasn't even begun. Once again, in the morning, Maggie and I walked along the shore of Loch Ness, our hands entwined. Inverness Shire lies in the north of Scotland, embraced by a group of highlands called the Grampians. It contains the highest point in all of Britain, known as Ben Nevis. From Ben Nevis, you can see the valleys lying asleep at your feet, and Loch Ness clearly visible. For Loch Ness is the nearest rift between the Grampian Highlands and the Northern Highlands, and this rifted region is called Glenmore. As Maggie told me, Loch Ness is one of the narrowest lakes in Scotland, in some parts not exceeding 1.5 kilometers in width. Its depth is 266 meters. Its area is 56 square kilometers. Its length is 83.4 kilometers. I do not know what benefit there is in recording these numbers, but I write them for geographical accuracy and to prove to dear Maggie that I was not such a hopeless student after all. I said to her teasingly, "Maggie, I haven't seen a Scottish man wearing a skirt yet." She laughed mockingly and said, "That's just a stereotype. It's a traditional costume we wear sometimes, not all the time. Just like we don't imagine Egyptians without their galabias and tarbooshes." She added playfully, "Your image of a Scotsman is a man wearing a beret and a kilt, playing bagpipes, and drinking whiskey all day long. Cinema and literary cliches made you idolize the stereotype." I replied, "True, but the skirt isn't called a skirt. It's a kilt. And Scotsmen aren't as stingy as they're described on the continent." She laughed softly, gazing steadily into my face. "Ah, my angel, if only I had a more beautiful face to show you." In the firelight, the traces of years were clearly visible on her face. She was no longer as radiant as before, yet she remained wonderful in every way. I didn't need much effort to fall in love with her once more. This would be the second love in my life. First, I loved a delicate, fragile girl named Maggie, and now I would love a mature, confident woman, the same Maggie. She said absent-mindedly, gazing at me, "By heaven, you've truly grown old." Sorry for having aged, and I promise I won't repeat that mistake. She burst into laughter, then drew her face close to mine and whispered, "Forever? What? Will you stay with me forever? Until all the stars burn out, and never." And then I screamed hysterically as she pointed toward the lake. "Do you see it? Nessie is moving there. Damn it." That creature intends to shatter my nerves. It always chooses the worst, or perhaps the best, possible moments to announce its presence and continue its foolish journey through this lake. There it was, the gray cylindrical body cutting its way through the waves from afar with water spray spreading around it. The closest thing, a submarine, moving beneath the surface, with about 30 centimeters of its body above the water, yet it seemed softer and more flexible than metal. No doubt it was alive. A giant fish, or a whale, or something of that kind. Maggie exclaimed, and I had begun to resent both her and her monster, in astonishment. No one has ever seen it in daylight before. Then she looked toward it wistfully and sighed, "If only we had a camera." I said to her, reaching into the handbag I was carrying, "I have one, but don't tell me you intend to waste several shots on that absurd thing." She shouted angrily as she snatched the camera from me and adjusted its lens. "You had it with you all this time and didn't bother to tell me? If it dives before I photograph it." "But I don't understand. It'll just be another picture that proves nothing. Waves, waves, and a gray shape among them. Besides, the film is black and white, which will make things even worse. Just gray densities showing nothing." "Shh." She said that as she aimed her lens toward the target, and click, 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 dozens of shots of what she believed to be today's miracle. Click, click, crack! The film ended, Fortunately, and before I could comprehend, she left me standing there like a fool and started running toward the castle, shouting and waving the camera. "Daddy, it's Nessie. I photographed it in daylight." And I stood alone on the shore of Loch Ness watching that moving thing in the distance. In anger, I raised my fist and shouted in Arabic, which, fortunately, no one understood. "Our days will come, you rusty sewer pipe." But then I remembered what Sir James had told me last night, which made me prefer not to challenge that creature. Instead, I decided to end my walk and return to the castle. It was a very large castle, this one owned by Sir James. Every corner of it reminded me of Scotland's many ghosts we see in the movies. The knights' armors standing in the hall seemed almost alive, as if about to move at any moment. And of course, there had to be a whole network of tunnels and labyrinths beneath this castle, a forgotten crypt, and perhaps even a buried treasure. Then there was the dignified, overly formal head butler, Graham, whose presence filled me with unease and a sense of foreboding. If this were an Agatha Christie story, Sir James would have been found murdered in his study, and the detective, Hercule Poirot, naturally, would have found no better suspect than this mysterious butler. But this wasn't an Agatha Christie story. Fortunately for Sir James, or unfortunately for me, Sir James walked me through the oil paintings, introducing me to the members of his noble family, of which he was the last, both by lineage and by fact, since he had no sons. He had always loved medicine, so he pursued it, becoming a doctor and a professor to me and to others. My family dates back to the time of Macbeth himself. Macbeth! He laughed gleefully and said, "I can't believe you've spent 2 years in Scotland without knowing that Macbeth, the hero of Shakespeare's play, was Scottish." But he's a fictional character. No, the historical basis of the play is true, except that Macduff didn't actually kill him. He lived until the year 1055 and died a natural death. Then he was succeeded by Malcolm III in the year 1058. Then followed Scotland's complex and tangled history and the line of kings who ruled us from Holyrood House Palace. Then he placed his hand on my shoulder and led me to his study, saying, "But enough of that. Come, let's see the photos of your monster that Maggie took." They've arrived now, and on his elegant antique desk were scattered the photographs Maggie had taken that morning. They were, as I had expected, utterly poor and unclear. Water droplets on the lens had made them even worse. Completely useless, aren't they? He asked, offering me a cigar as he sat behind his desk. I replied, "I warned her." He said to me, "But there is something new worth paying attention to. The Loch Ness monster has changed its pattern of appearances." "Pattern?" He smiled playfully and said, "Of course. Isn't it a British monster? It's organized and very precise. Its appearances are not random at all." Then he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a rolled sheet of stiff paper, spreading it across the desk. It was covered in red and green dots, detailed drawings of Scotland's northern coast, and several arrows. He began calmly explaining that this chart attempted to pinpoint the monster's locations and dates of appearance, correlating them with astronomical positions, the moon's phase, the hour, and natural phenomena such as tides. It was clear that the creature moved in a circular path, centered about 100 meters away from Urquhart Castle. It also preferred nights of the new moon. When the moon disappeared, the tide receded and midnight struck. Then it would appear. Sir James, or rather the genius who had noticed these details, had drawn a precise curve predicting exactly where and how it would appear next time. In August 64, it will appear at midnight on the 11th day here. In September 64, it will appear at midnight on the 6th day here. I exclaimed in amazement, "That's brilliant." "So all you need to do is be there at that exact moment with your cameras and spotlights." He shook his head and said, "We haven't done that yet, and I'll tell you the reason in a moment." As I studied the complex map before me, a question crossed my mind. And where does it go between these appearances? Where is its lair? Sir James scratched his head in deep thought, then murmured, "That is the question," as Hamlet would say. "There are 2 possibilities. First possibility, it lives in a cave beneath the lake. And you know the famous saying, 'Every cave beneath a Scottish lake hides a mythical beast.'" Second possibility, it lives in the North Sea, and when the floods rise in January and February, it manages to enter Loch Ness through one of the 7 Caledonian canals. But how many mysterious questions surround this creature? What you have just heard is only one chapter of a long novel, a journey that has not ended yet, and secrets that have not all been revealed. In the upcoming parts, you will find the truth becoming more mysterious and the events more thrilling. So be ready, because the story has not spoken its final word yet.